I'm making a video on my color correction process. I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and I essentially stick to the curves panel, and I'll explain why I do that in a little bit. Um, this is a time lapse of a project that I shot, edited, and color graded in Miami. It's a behind the scenes shoot for a music video, pretty large production, shot with Trivision Productions in Chantilly, Virginia. Um, and so yeah, I'm just gonna sort of talk through essentially like the techniques I do. A lot of people like to use LUTs for like all of their shots, and they'll take that LUT, paste it to all their log footage, and then that's sort of what they have for their grade. I do all my corrections locally, believe it or not. It takes me like longer than it should to go through every single shot, but I like to make sure that every shot, especially when it comes to correction and the white balance, is even. And so, yeah, as you can see here, I will start my grade in the basic tab. Oh, before, let me preface all this to say that this is all shot in S-Log to 8-bit on a Sony a6300. So a lot of the grades and a lot of techniques I do are I've developed over a while from owning this camera. The 8-bit footage, especially when you shoot an S-Log, it's really finicky if you pull and push too hard. You can start introducing a lot of grain into the image. You'll see this here. I tend to stick to the same pretty smooth, just sort of S curve that brings a good amount of contrast in. But yeah, you can see I start in the basic tab. I'll do a little quick auto correction, and that just sort of gets the image back down to where it needs to be. I generally expose to the right a little bit with this S-Log footage. It needs to be, the mirrorless sensors like a lot of light, especially the older ones. And the A6300 is like, I got it back in 2018, so it's pretty old. But yeah, it likes a lot of light, so that's sort of why I'll overexpose a little bit, and then the auto levels in Premiere will pull that down. So here, I apologize. I forgot to record my second screen for the first segment of this video, so you can't see my scopes, although you can see them in the video. But for those of you who don't know what S-Log is, S-Log essentially records everything in a very compressed color format, where your gray or your whites are brought down to a grayer color and your blacks are brought up to a grayer color, and this essentially helps maintain all the detail without blowing out your whites or your blacks, and it maintains dynamic range in your image. Although when working with an 8-bit image, stretching it out a lot can really introduce grain. And the way I do that is I'll just throw the way I fix that is I'll just throw an adjustment layer above the entire timeline, and I'll go to my my luma versus saturation curve. I don't think I actually recorded this part, and then I'll just pull down the saturation in the blacks, and that way I know they're pure black. Sometimes I'll do it for the whites too. I think I actually did it for this video because the footage gets grainy up in those sort of extreme areas. Yeah, there's also a specific shot in here where I go into the Hsl curves. But before I go into the Hsl curves and sort of like how I use Hsl for skin tone specifically, I figured I'd like say who I am. I guess a little bit first. I'm a local DP here based in DC. I do a lot of work for studios on site, first AC work, PA work, and then obviously a lot of projects like this that I'll go shoot end to end, color grade and whatnot. These are honestly my favorite projects to shoot, just getting to do everything. But yeah, I'm based in DC. I'm in my fourth year of college, graduate at the end of the year. Okay, but back to what we're doing. Okay, so this shot, this was shot over 2 days. The first day you guys, or I just sort of discussed, we shot some drone footage. I was a drone operator for this project as well, which I'll talk about at the end. And we also just the director shot a bunch of gimbal footage with a Sony FX3. That came out really nice. And then what you're seeing here is the second day of shooting, or at least the car ride onto the second day of shooting, where I am, just taking some shots. We're down in Miami of these nice cruise ships and whatnot, grading them. Some of these shots are interesting because you can see like a little RGB refraction effect from shooting through the window of the car, which is something I experienced also when I shot through the roof of like a Tesla going through New York City. So that's always something that's interesting to deal with in coloring. So yeah, now obviously the director, producer, and the DP are all introducing themselves here, and these are just some straightforward shots that you need to get. The interaction shots. Now the DP and the director are sort of walking around, getting an idea of the 3 scenes that they're going to shoot for the day and whatnot. And so. Okay, so for this section, the syncing, wasn't working with my camera. Remember, this is my first YouTube video. And so I'm just going to sort of talk a little bit more in depth about the actual processes I use in here. So obviously you can see it's just a pretty standard S curve, and then I go and I'll add a little bit of contrast and saturation based on what I see in the scopes to the image. And so you can tell here that a lot of these images that you're going to start seeing are going to get really dark, and the way to, it's shooting S-Log 2 in the dark with a 30, with an APS-C sensor, and underexposing it sometimes because, it's documentary filming and you don't always nail the shot every time. There's some pretty rough shots in here that I have to deal with, and I think the best way to fix that is just pulling down is being very careful how far you pull down your blacks. A lot of people will pull down those blacks all the way to the point where you can't even, they're crushed. They'll crush their blacks. And I think that, especially to the eye, if you can get those blacks as close enough to black without actually getting them too black, it'll work. And it gives you enough contrast, and it also helps reduce the amount of noise, because the lower you push those blacks, especially with this S-Log footage, the image really starts to distort, and you induce a lot of grain. But yeah, so I'm just sort of going through here, finishing these shots. I'm actually going to go ahead and skip ahead to my HSL secondaries shot. And it's actually one of the... Okay, yeah, so it's right around here. And this is actually like one of the nicer shots that I think was taken during the whole shoot. So they had sort of one beam of light. I believe it was like a Joker and our Joker, and they just really sort of like cut it well. Okay, so here's the HSL part, and you can see, so her skin tone is really yellow orangey. It doesn't really fall on the skin tone line. That's right between the red and the yellow there on the vector scope. And so what I ended up doing is I just sort of pulled back some red, and I'm sort of showing that there. I'm actually like pushing the colors back towards red, away from green, because Sonys are actually infamous for shooting green skin tones. And so that's a really good thing to do, especially because we're using a lot of green light in the scene. It's really prevalent. Now I'm just going to go, I guess the last thing I'll talk about are my drone shots. I like this. This is the final scene that we shot outside. They used the gimbal. It looked really nice. And basically, there's the director. There's one of the actors. One of the artists. And yeah, this was like my favorite scene, particularly. It's filmed up against the hood of this red car, and everything looks really nice. But lastly, we moved to a pool, and that's when there I am. That's when I come out with the drone and finish up some of essentially what are the opening and closing shots of the whole video. And you can see here that it's raining a little bit, actually. I use a DJI Inspire 1 platform, and that is, believe it or not, if it held up fairly well in the rain, although I will say the rain that I did shoot in was a little bit more... It held up really well, and the shots look great. They used the shots. They actually ended up... The drone actually just, like, zooms out, and they have, like, clouds, CGI clouds, and it goes out to the world, and, they sort of zoom in on Miami. But yeah, the song is called Dilbar. By the time you see this video, it will be released, because I can't talk about it until it's released. But yeah, so that's sort of my color grading process. It's nothing too crazy. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. I plan on showing off my camera rig a lot more very soon. Again, this is more of an introductory video, just more for my own sake, to really get this channel started and try and figure out where I'm gonna go and how this is gonna develop in the future. But yeah, I look forward to gaining more traction, talking to more people, and just learning as we go throughout this whole process. But yeah, thanks guys. Peace.